explain to me, why did the Navy decide to establish the Second Fleet and when? And if we could take a step back in history to the present time.
Okay, so that very good question to kind of set the stage for why the Navy made the determination to reestablish the Second Fleet. It was started essentially at the end of the Second World War, at the beginning of the Cold War, specifically to operate in the Atlantic in opposition to the Soviet Union. And as the fleet as the Soviet became more, more aggressive, more outreach in their operations, we countered that with Second Fleet operations. And there was an organization over the top of that called the Supreme Allied Command Atlantic, which was also headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia. And in the post-Cold War era of 2004, 2005, Supreme Allied Command Atlantic was disestablished. And at that time, the Second Fleet was maintained, but it retrograded back to basically a training fleet, and also a fleet that prepared to be a joint task force commander. And then in 2011, in further savings, if you like, the fleet was disestablished altogether. And then with the time frame from 2000, the new 2010 time frame, with the Russian being more present and being a lot more outside and less of a friend, and especially post 2014, the Russian, specifically the Russian Navy, was out and about a lot more, and we had this wide gap in the Atlantic in which we were not really being seen to operate. So Admiral Richardson, my former boss, he made a determination to, as the Chief of Naval Operations, to reestablish the Second Fleet, and that's what boiled down to it. And I was charged with that in August of 2018, and I had about 10 people with me at the time. Lieutenant Walsh was one of them, and we've gone from that to a fully operational staff, fully operational fleet, as achieved at the end of 2019. And I have a command called Joint Force Command Norfolk, which is a NATO command, which was established within NATO command structure for the same reasons, because of NATO's recognition of the security environment that has changed over time. Just anecdotally, when I was a youngster, I was commissioned in 1985. So early on in my time in the Navy, there was a lot of Cold War activity. I flew in the first night of Desert Storm in 1991, and I remember thinking to myself, as I was dropping bombs in Iraq, that I never thought I would be actually dropping bombs on a country in anger. Really, I never really thought that, because I thought, I was brought up in the Cold War mindset. So if we were dropping bombs, we were dropping nuclear weapons, and it was a world war we were going to. And it was a totally, a very surreal experience. Since that time, since post-Desert Storm, and certainly post-2001, it's been a very different kind of conflict that we've been in, and not what we would characterize as a great power competition, but a competition, a conflict in which we are very engaged in the military, but it's not what we think of as a world war like we had in the Second World War and the First World War, and what the Cold War portended had it gone the wrong direction.